I'm so excited.
Yeah.
This is
You're a little more enthusiastic than I am.
because I'm ready to go.
How are you?
Because it was a great episode.
You had a big morning. It was a great episode yesterday, especially after the bit of a setup episode last week, which was needed. So as we do in ThroneCast, we're going to cover the different areas, and we figured we'd start across the pond with Daenerys and Meereen.
Please, by the way, share us down below. I love doing this.
Yeah, it is fun. I've never done it before.
Do it.
If you like the video, down below right there, click like, subscribe, share it on Twitter, whatever. Just always want to do that. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. First one I've ever made. But diving right in.
Yeah.
So we're in Meereen.
Meereen, which I think I nailed it on the head last week because I said that when Daenerys perched herself on the top of Meereen in front of the flag, it looked like she was going to set up shop in Meereen, and I think the show did a really good job of kind of leading you to believe that, and she is. She had the opportunity, right, had the big conference with her counselors, I guess, at the beginning, and we're deciding, are they going to invade King's Landing? And the consensus there was they would have easily taken over King's Landing if they would have invaded right now.
Yeah.
However, not Westeros.
I think there was some debate. Now, some thought that, they would easily, but it would still require people flocking to her banner at least. But chances were in her favor if she was to move on King's Landing.
Right. But they had the news that Astapor and Yunkai, the slavers, had retaken over those cities. So she thought about it, had the conference, and decided to stay there and basically rule the East for the foreseeable future. She's going to obviously try to re-liberate those cities, I would assume. Yeah,
it seems like it. And, I think it was a big moment for Daenerys. It was one of those where she really kind of had to look inside herself. What were her ultimate goals? And I think it was a pretty wise choice, for her. She's expecting, when she's talking about how are people supposed to trust me if I haven't proven that I can rule anything. Throughout the show, you see people just trying to grab power whenever, wherever, however they can. And for somebody to kind of pump the brakes a little bit, realize that they themselves could probably use a little more experience, and to just worry about the people they're taking power from.
He's talking about himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But for her to even worry about the people that she's going to be ruling over is a bit of a change of pace for the show. Big moment for her. Little side moment in that scene that, kind of got glossed over. Daario Naharis continues to kind of try to win over Daenerys' heart as he snagged her 93 ships, right? Yeah. He basically snagged the whole Navy with the Second Sons just because he said, I heard you like ships.
With the
playing it Joe Cool.
Maybe the old Daario would have wooed her, but they recast Daario and apparently not nearly as attractive to her or something. I don't know. Good recast, by the way. I'm not usually for recasts in shows that are long-spanning like this. But if there ever was a time where they needed to recast a character, it was him, and they made the right choice.
I mean, he didn't match the description, but I liked the old Daario, actually. I thought last season's Daario, he grew on me, dude. He had a swagger about him. He was huge, which I thought was pretty cool. He seemed like he was like 6'6", just a giant of a man.
Right.
But, so, I'd go either way with the new Daario. Obviously, they're not exploring her feelings for him too much. I would say she has bigger fish to fry. She has bigger things on her plate.
Well, the question is,
Jorah got a little bit of FaceTime with Daenerys, and he was just so happy.
I like Jorah's one of my favorite characters in the whole show. Actually, I like what he brings. He's kind of the yin to Daenerys' yang.
He was looking good. He had a nice tan going. It seems like Meereen has served him well. I thought he looked very good.
Okay, so the question for Daenerys now becomes: what is her immediate goal and long-term goal? I still think long-term she wants to reclaim Westeros for the Targaryens. Yeah. But how long is that going to be now? Like, it seems like if she's going to spend all this effort over in the East, and it's not going to be quick, okay, we're going to go quickly retake over Yunkai and Astapor.
They've proven that.
And then we're off west to Westeros. There's still other cities there nearby who now I'm sure are getting a little bit wary and see her coming for them. So I could kind of see a banding together of all these slavers trying to thwart her power a little bit. So I don't know what's going to happen. I would think, I'll just guess because I hit it on the nail last time. I think that she is going to meet stiff resistance the rest of the season from
I'd give her
group together
statistics.
from group together slavers. And that's going to kind of be what she builds up to towards the end. Some kind of ultimate conflict between her group and the slavers in that part of the world.
It definitely seems to be heading that way. Think about it. The whole economy of that continent is based off the slave trade. She's knocked down 3 of the major cities in a row that would have, at a time, seemed unconquerable. And now 2, back out of her hands. Slave Masters have taken over 1. Now, the other one, I don't think the slave masters are back in control. I think it's almost like a gang leader has taken control. We don't know much about him. They call him the Butcher.
Yeah.
He's proclaimed himself king of everything. So he's obviously, he's made the most of the power vacuum that Daenerys has created. And that's something that I think is going to be a recurring theme with Daenerys is it's not just about winning the battles. And she obviously alluded towards that, saying, how can I be queen if I don't yet know how to rule?
Right.
It's about dealing with all the issues that arise after the battles. That's going to keeping these people fed, keeping them protected, teaching them. Because these slaves may have been slaves their entire life. They may know nothing else other than be a slave. How do you make them into an active member of society? She's just got so much to deal with that I think I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't see her heading to Westeros anytime soon.
This is, by the way, the 2nd episode in a row that we haven't seen her dragons. And what I'm getting from the way George R.R. Martin writes, and he's a co-producer of the show, so he has a lot of input, is a lot of times they'll put stuff way in the background that are actually big deals and then do like a big reveal, right? Like Littlefinger that we'll talk about in a little bit, right?
Get there in a
he was in the background for basically the whole season last season.
You never saw him.
And all of a sudden I thought he was done. Makes a reappearance and he's behind everything. Well, now the dragons have been completely in the background and I could see them having a huge role in these fights.
It would be interesting to see, too, how much of that is a monetary concern on the show's part. Because I know they put a ton of money
$6
in
million
each episode, but you still got to imagine they're trying to be as frugal as possible, save money where they can, and not having to do special effects, not having to animate those, going to save you a little bit. And they're not really needed. Like, you've seen enough of the dragons where you don't need to see them week in and week out to respect their power. And really, maybe that was kind of the momentum that got Daenerys started, and it's probably going to be what she relies on to take over everything eventually. But it seems like, to me, that they're really stressing that she's kind of come into her own. She's her own power source now, if that makes sense.
I tell you, if those dragons get as big as the artwork we saw a couple of weeks ago,
absolutely,
they're going to be a huge factor. So let's move from the east to Erie now.
Because we're back on Westeros.
Huge scenes here for everybody involved. I love the way they did it. Littlefinger's behind everything now. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Is that I don't know anybody who didn't read the books would have thought before this season that Littlefinger was behind everything.
Yeah,
behind everything from Jon Arryn's death to now Ned Stark's death to Joffrey's death. Everything. Like, Littlefinger is completely pulling the strings here.
That is the kicker to me, is the reveal that Lysa, who is Catelyn's sister, she's the Lady of the Vale, and there's a movie that Lysa poisoned Jon Arryn, her husband, and then wrote to her sister, Catelyn Stark, blaming the Lannisters, which set all of this in motion. Basically caused the clash of 5 kings. Basically, I mean, Littlefinger has worked up from nothing. He is now Lord of the Vale. It is just unbelievably impressive what he's been able to do, and I love how he does it. He talks about being unpredictable, playing all sides.
He's open with Sansa about it anyways.
He is devious, and he's reaping the benefits. I can't hate on Littlefinger's hustle. I thought it was just... I remembered why, because I read the books, and sometimes the details get lost, and I remember thinking, oh man, Littlefinger's like really powerful, but I thought it was just because he killed Joffrey. I'd actually forgotten that he started off everything with Jon Arryn. So when they revealed that, I mean, that is kind of like you talked about. He's somebody who wasn't even on the show that much, yet he's just been pulling the strings the whole time. And something else he has a hand in, which I'm going to be interested to see how he wants to resolve this, is a great scene we'll get to later with Tyrion when they're talking about the Iron Bank. Littlefinger was the master of coin for a while, and so he, I would imagine, started a lot of that borrowing, started some of the policies from the Iron Bank.
Yeah.
So he's who knows?
Puppet master.
Who knows how high Littlefinger's ceiling goes? Because so far, he kind of is playing. He's playing everybody. He hasn't wrapped around his finger. He's been the most successful at playing the Game of Thrones, without a doubt.
First of all, Sansa. I know a lot of people find Sansa a little whiny, and they don't like watching her scenes.
That. She's had an incredibly rough go
Right.
of things, in my opinion.
Right, and that continues for her even rougher now, because when she thought finally, even though she didn't really like Littlefinger, at least she was thinking, okay, I finally get away from King's Landing, this can't be as bad, and now she's taken basically hostage here. I mean, that's what it is.
It is.
And
She's
getting married off to a crazy person. Another crazy person like Joffrey, this kid, this
Robin.
teenage teat sucker, Robin.
We did not suck on any boobs in this episode, which is different from his character last season. So there's that. He's got that going.
This whole it's crazy. So Sansa, I don't even know what she's going to do now. But this whole eerie situation in general, for me, I see Lysa's not long for this world, right? Littlefinger's way too power hungry. He's got too many fingers in all sorts of pots now, where I think he realizes once maybe he's got big fingers in all the pots, but
pies?
I don't know.
Am
I off base there? But I feel like
no. I mean, he obviously doesn't like her, right? Like
Right.
she can't see it because she's kind of blinded.
the question I would
by his
have though
love
with
for
this,
her.
if let's say he offs her, wouldn't be he'd do some kind of weird, where accident type of thing. Would he have power now since he's the Lord? Let's say Robin
they're married
Lysa die. Right, but it's not blood. So would it be one of the, I guess I wouldn't know. Maybe he would have power. He'd find a way
I'm
to have power.
guessing now that they're married that he's Lord of the Vale. And I think until maybe Robin would come of age, then he would have to hand it off, and that's a while for Littlefinger probably to decide how to kill him as well. I mean, it seems like Littlefinger's kind of worked his way into control of the most defensible position in all of Westeros. And as a side note, as a fantasy fan, a fan of fantasy settings, etc., I love the Eyrie.
Yeah. The Bloody Gate is awesome.
I thought it was really cool. They did that. They show you've got to go through this tiny little narrow path just to get to the gate, which then gets you to a more narrow path, which then goes up a mountain. That's all. You can not attack that place. You could siege it, but if they have a way to get supplies, you can never dislodge anyone from the Eyrie. You would have to throw an incredible amount of men there. And I just think the whole shot with the castle kind of building out of the mountain was spectacular, and I really enjoyed it.
It's the perfect location for Littlefinger because it's so protected, even if all the other houses...
And it's at the back of everybody's mind. Nobody is paying attention to the Vale. As far as the Baratheons, the Lannisters, the Tyrells, nobody's paying attention to Littlefinger, and nobody's paying attention to the Vale, and that's because of how well he's played and how unpredictable he's been.
Yeah. By the way, just as an aside, in these 4 years of the show, Sansa's gotten gorgeous. She is
tall. Beautiful.
I noticed when she stood
tall.
next to Littlefinger, she was like 3-4 inches taller than him.
Yeah. No, she's
gorgeous.
She's developed into just that's another person who, as far as fantasy settings, kind of fantasy tropes go, I love her look.
Yeah.
When she was running away a couple episodes from the wedding and her cloak was kind of billowing behind her, it was almost too cheesy, but I'm all in on it. I absolutely loved it.
I have a feeling down the road, probably not this season, but eventually, Sansa will have a massive role in the outcome of what happens in Westeros.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, just the way, I'm just kind of thinking the way that George R.R. Martin writes, and he gives little hints and teases in his interviews. He says, no bad deed goes unpunished, or everything has a consequence, right? And he wouldn't have left Sansa alive for this long, I don't think, unless she has some kind of role in the future.
It seems like now she has Littlefinger on her side, who has proven... Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's excellent. Excellent joke. But it proves that, she's got somebody that's going to be pretty adept at keeping her safe, protecting her. Now, where his motivations really lie, that could be questioned. Really creepy scene between Lysa and Sansa, by the way, too. The actress who plays Lysa was spectacular, I thought, during it, giving that mixture of, I'm insane while kind of acting caring, and then turning to insane, and then turning right back to caring. And the best part about it was, right at the end of the conversation, she mentions Sansa marrying Robin, and you can see Sansa just get this crestfallen face as she realized
Or
all she's
something.
done is escape from one jail to another. All right, so that'll wrap it up for the Erie, Littlefinger, Sansa, etc. This is...
We had an accident, right?
Drew-
That's why we had to pause and we had to cut the
Drew
tape.
Brees' head fell off. Unfortunately, there's headless Breezes. It's okay. Hopefully, he'll bring us some good luck. All right, moving on. King's Landing.
Yeah, King's Landing. It's, boy, good episode for Cercei. We finally at least see her doing something besides getting drunk and whining, which is all we've seen the last
They do
season.
stay drinking wine, though, the Lannisters. So, I mean, they're in King's Landing. They're in the palace. They have the most wine to drink out of anyone. If you can afford to, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, two things stood out for me in this episode for King's Landing. Number one, this is the first episode, I think, in the show's history we haven't seen Tyrion, right? Wasn't even involved at all. So, and
I'm not entirely sure, but he definitely wasn't in it, which was interesting.
I think that's the first episode ever he hasn't been in. And number two was that Cercei and Oberyn had a little bonding moment there, where Cersei's obviously working all sorts of sides to make sure her brother dies because she can't stand him, right? Went to her father, went to Tywin, and then went to Oberyn, who are two of the three judges, to try to sway them into convicting him and finding him guilty. Now, it's interesting because it looked like Oberyn, who is now basically watching over her daughter. You remember when this is how all the Cercei Tyrion hate started, is Tyrion sent her daughter to Dorne
to secure Dorne's alliance.
Right, which happened, and Cersei was thinking that Dorne was being awful to her daughter because of what the Lannisters had done to the Martells previously, and Oberyn says, we don't hurt children, she's doing great. So they had a little bit of a bonding moment there, and I don't think Oberyn is naive enough that is going to change his mind about what he wants to do to Tywin or the Lannisters in general, seize power from them, but maybe he has a little more sympathy for Cersei in the end now. I don't know. It's interesting because next week, if you saw the teasers, there's trial's going to happen next week, and
It's gonna be big.
Right, Oberyn's part of that. He's one of the judges. Tywin's part of that as well.
And
I
Mace
still
Tyrell.
think, and Mace Tyrell, I think Oberyn is going to decide that trial in some way or the other. They're setting it up so perfectly that everybody's going to be against Tyrion, but Oberyn hasn't declared his allegiance yet.
Yeah.
Right? So if anybody is going to save Tyrion in one way or the other, whether it's directly by voting he's innocent or by behind the scenes some kind of backstab like we talked about a couple of episodes ago here on ThroneCast, Oberyn will have a huge role in the trial next week.
Interesting part about Cersei to this episode, she had civil conversations with everyone.
Yeah.
Didn't threaten anyone, didn't get mad at anyone. And you mentioned her talking to two of the three judges. She also had a very civil, not very, but a friendly conversation with Marjorie Tyrell, whose father, Mace, is on the judges' panel. So you could even say that she's trying to work over all three and kind of sell herself to them. I thought she did a great job. Tommen is now king. We should mention that. Mm-hmm. He got crowned officially. Cersei was there, basically asks Marjorie for help. Marjorie tries to act like, I can't even imagine being queen. Cersei realizes that they have to keep the Tyrells close. Excellent conversation with Tywin, where we got so much backstory.
Yeah.
The Lannisters are out of gold. Their gold supply is dried up. That's huge. They owe the Iron Bank. And Tywin had one of the coolest, I just got goosebumps thinking about it, one of the coolest lines as far as the Iron Bank goes, where he talks about we're all living in its shadow and most of us don't even know it. I just love the idea that as powerful as we think of the king and all these other people, that there is just this giant financial institution
that
at the end of the day, exactly, right? Like money talks at the end of the day and everything else walks. Tywin kind of put that into perspective and said, yeah, that's why we need the Tyrells. That's why we need to be on good terms. And Cersei kind of pointed out to him to get on his good side, well, look, I'm your only kid that's on your side, right? I'm willing to do what I have to for the family. I'll marry Loras, etc. Your sons, they're no good. So Cersei really politicking to get Tyrion killed, along with kind of helping herself out with various relationships.
Yeah, and we see finally, I consider Tyrion pretty sympathetic now in the show, but Tommen definitely is one of those you can actually kind of root for a little bit. Like the whole since
He's
season
got a lot
one,
of positive momentum going for him.
right? Since season one, we've wanted the Lannisters, I guess technically Baratheons, but they're Lannisters, to be overthrown.
Remember that Tommen is a Baratheon by name.
Yeah, we wanted them to be overthrown, out of the Iron Throne, somebody else to claim it, the Starks, even the Tyrells, whoever it is. But now, at least there's a part of me that's like, okay, this kid wouldn't be so bad if you could just get his grandfather and his mother out of the way. Those crazy people. So, I don't know. Definitely interesting, and you're right. They are now the Tyrells and the Lannisters on the same side that they're going to marry each other. And
they're setting up.
Share power.
They're solidifying their union. All right, so we're going to be spending a lot of time in King's Landing next week. So let's head over to where the main action took place, and that is Beyond the Wall.
So last but certainly not least, Battle for Craster's Keep, which was awesome.
Craster's Keep. Can I say something real quick about Craster that I feel a little passionate about, that I kind of noticed at the end when they were burning down said keep? Craster may be a terrible individual. Yes, he sacrifices his incestuous sons to the White Walkers. Okay, so he has no redeeming moral qualities. However, this dude made a hell of a life for himself in a terrible, terrible, hard-to-survive environment. Like, his house was pretty sweet. It was supporting like 20 to 30 to maybe even 40 people. I'm just saying, Craster, terrible person, yes, but effective at building up his own power, controlling his own. Hey, I gave Craster some props. That house was pretty cool before they burned
built on the back of incestuous daughters and sons.
But there were a lot of people trying to come challenge him, and he's out in the middle of nowhere, beyond the wall. There's no rule there.
Maybe this is a moral for real life too, because everybody with the big house is like dirty and slimy.
All I'm saying
I'm joking.
is that Craster did an excellent job of making a life for himself out there. Now, eventually he got got. He got got, but it kind of put it into perspective watching that house burn. I was like, damn, the thing's pretty big. Good job, Craster.
Again, I don't know. I want to wring George R.R. Martin's neck sometimes, just a little bit, because of the way he teases us with Bran and Jon coming back together, and they get so close once again.
Yeah.
And once again, they don't meet, and they both are, I guess, Bran knows Jon's alive, obviously, but Jon doesn't know Bran's alive. So it's a little bit frustrating as a fan. I guess I understand why Bran didn't want, because Jon would have taken him back and not let him continue on his mission. But
yeah, Jon still thinks that Bran is dead. By the way, okay, so let's start with Bran. They're locked up.
Frustrating.
They're locked up in Craster's Keep. They got captured last episode. Yeah, he's with the Reed twins, Jojen and Mira.
I don't know.
I believe it's Mira, but whatever. We'll figure that out. But Jojen, one of my favorite scenes. I'm a fan of high fantasy. He's supposed to be a seer. He has a sight or whatever. He can see things that haven't taken place yet, et cetera, et cetera. And although maybe some would say it was heavy-handed to just straight up have him kind of have a vision, I loved it. I thought they did an excellent job of kind of showing how his mind, how his certain gifts and powers work when they're sitting there in this dingy cell and he's seeing kind of like a sunlit Brandon with an ancient weirwood or it's a tree of the old gods. It's a tree that the northern men, it's a tree that they worship.
With the face.
That they go pray to. Yeah, and so Brandon, it's way beyond the wall. It's there's sunlight. He's like completely removed from the situation in Jojen's eyes, and he kind of tells him, "This isn't the end for you. You know, you're going to move on." And I just, it was very fantasy, very fantastical, and it all of Jojen's scenes actually in this episode I loved.
Okay,
with his hands on fire, and then he tells the other guy, "I've seen you die. I've seen you die tonight." It was.
So that
kind of got me excited.
Speaking of the hand on fire thing, that confused me a little bit. So was he seeing himself eventually on fire, or is that just like the fire that happened to Craster's Keep?
You know,
does he die in fire later?
I can't even speculate as to what. Well, I can speculate. I don't know for sure what that meant. I do know that I liked it. Yeah. I really did.
I think that means he's going to die.
I thought it meant he was going to die, but I thought it kind of meant he was going to die that night.
Yeah.
Which he didn't, because he was doing the sickly thing, and then he has this whole scene where he tells Brandon, "Your journey isn't done." So it seemed like they were setting up for him to die right there. He hasn't died yet, but when Jojen's talking to Carl, the Carl of Snake Alley,
Yeah.
Is it,
I don't know. Some
Killer Carl,
assassin from
Killer Carl, the assassin from King's Landing. He tells him straight up as he's about to rape his sister and kill him. He's like, "Hey, I've seen you die, bro. I've seen you die tonight." And then, of course, the attack starts when Jon shows up.
Yeah. Best scene of the show, I think. A little disturbing, but still cool. Well, there were two good scenes, right? The one where Jon kills Carl, which was pretty cool.
It was a great fight.
Yeah.
Carl's double short blade, double kind of knife
awesome.
technique was really cool. Especially, too, I thought, in a close quarter situation, it kind of showed you that having just a big sword, which is funny because the Hound talks about just having a big sword in this episode.
And big armor, good armor.
That having a big sword isn't always an advantage. As Carl kind of put it on Jon in the close quarters. Definitely got one over on him. And also he taught Jon that, you know what? Fighting fair, fighting in the castle, fighting honorably isn't always the best way to win.
I feel like, okay, if that was real life, I feel like the guy with dual-wielding blades would have kicked some ass and won that fight. Against a big honking sword.
He did win the fight, though.
That's true, he did. You're right, yeah.
He spit in his face, kicked him on the ground, and was ready to execute before one of Craster's daughters.
Incestuous daughters.
Yeah, Craster saving the day. Good old Craster.
Yeah.
One of his daughters stuck a knife in Carl's back, which was also really cool because then Carl's so crazy, he just turns around and rips the knife out and is about to do it, and he gets a big old sword.
Yeah.
Straight through the mouth.
The second one, and it was only disturbing because I feel like Bran, he used Hodor to commit this. He had to do it, right? He had to go in Hodor's body and kill the guy. But Hodor seems so broken up that when he came out of his body, he's looking down, he's going like, Hodor, what's going on? What did you just do to me?
Look, I know he's a fan favorite, but I gotta be honest here.
Hodor or Bran?
Hodor.
Okay.
I get a little sick of him just saying Hodor. And I know that's his thing. That's his shtick. It's all he says. It's all he can say. I get it. Still, maybe a little bit annoying to me. Not something I expect him to change. Real quick, the guy whose neck he snapped, Roose Bolton's right-hand man, one who chopped the hand off of Jaime Lannister, had worked his way in there with Jon, and it looked like he was going to get away with Bran and Rickon before Hodor has to have part giant in him, right? Yeah. He's so strong. He lifts him up and snaps his neck to where the bone is sticking out, which was also really cool. I love hyper-violence in my movies and TV shows, and we talked about it before the show. The bone sticking out was just an excellent detail to kind of drive the point home that Hodor's powerful.
Yeah.
And he can kind of snap normal-sized humans like a twig.
What I didn't see coming out of the whole thing, I thought, what's his name again? The guy the bad guy who Hodor killed?
I actually don't even...
Okay, one of the Bolton's lackeys, anyways.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to have a much longer and more in-depth story arc than that. I never saw his death coming.
It's a great part about Game of Thrones. Sometimes you think a character's going to develop and they die, and sometimes you think a character's going to die and they continue to develop and become bigger and bigger players. You never really know who is going to have the biggest impact on the scene. And I thought it was a great episode, man. The fight, I thought was very well done. And then I'm with you. Just the whole scene with the brothers. They're so close. And all he has to do is reach out, and yell Jon, and Joe just like, hey, man, look, Bran, you got to make a choice. What do you want to do? Like, are you really about going north and trying to find the three-eyed raven? Or do you just want to go back to Castle Black and maybe live comfortably like a lord again? And I think it was really big that Bran, who is crippled, who grew up so pampered, that he would choose to continue such a tough journey with so many obstacles, so many unknowns. I think that speaks to his character and that he's ready to take on a bigger role.
I wonder if Bran can warg into a White Walker. That's probably why he's going north. I'm just thinking about this now. It's just coming he'll be able to control the White Walkers.
I don't know. And it's interesting. He can control all kind of animals.
Yeah. And the White Walkers we found out last time are definitely a societal
something. Yeah, they got a
They're
castle.
not just crazy zombies.
They had some sort of ritual going on. No, there's something more there. But so do you think? And this is just kind of us theorizing. Can Bran control Hodor because he's of lesser intelligence, or could Bran control any human?
I think Bran, I don't know, just the way they played it, I would think he could control anybody. But maybe not. Maybe that's something that I've just glossed over.
No, I mean, I don't know either. I just kind of, it goes back to, some of the other things that we've maybe, seen differently. Like, I thought for sure that baby was being changed into a White Walker. You didn't
I didn't
necessarily get that feeling. See, I think the only reason he can control Hodor is because he's maybe of a little bit lesser intelligence.
Well, maybe that's true, because why else would he do Hodor and not just
the guy
turn
himself.
into the guy? So maybe you're right, now that I'm thinking about it. All right, last but not least, cool scene and the best pair in the show, undoubtedly, right? Arya and the Hound.
Yeah, Arya.
Great pair. And they had she finally brought back talking about as she goes to sleep people who she wants to kill. And she included the Hound in front of the Hound, which is interesting. I don't think it was actually a threat. I just was kind of think it was kind of a fuck you kind of thing.
Yeah. No, Arya, though, is... I'd be a little wary if I was a Hound, hearing her say that, because she's proven she's a little crazy. And I don't know, I think I'd sleep with one eye open, but...
well, he only has... Does he have... I guess he does have two eyes.
He has two eyes. This one
half a face.
A little uglier than the other. A couple cool things about that scene. Their conversation as it develops. I like how the Hound's, not judging her for having a list of people to kill. He's like, it's better motivation than most. I mean, I would say that's reasonable. And then... Great scene with Arya training in the Bravosi style, doing the water dancing that she learned from Sirio, and
tries to stab the Hound with it, and doesn't get anywhere. And then the Hound just backhands her to the ground. Yeah,
the Hound kind of teaches her.
Was that a loving backhand?
The Hound kind of teaches her a lesson that don't be feeling yourself too much, Arya. You got fancy moves. Kind of almost the same lesson that Jon got taught this episode. You got fancy moves. You got a lot of training. It looks good, but sometimes the fight itself is just so different from training. It's so different from any sort of sparring you've done. All rules are off. Winner takes all. People get desperate when their lives are on the line. That's kind of what I took out of those couple scenes.
Right. Well, perfect segue, because fighting fair certainly not going to happen next week. We know, if you watched the preview on the HBO show afterwards, they previewed that the trial at least is going to happen. Don't know if there's a verdict, but the trial is happening next week. And certainly the Lannisters are not going to be fighting fair against their own son. Tywin wants to bring the hammer of injustice down on Tyrion.
Yeah.
And it's him, Oberyn, and Mace Tyrell, the three judges. So, as we kind of get ready to sign off here, T-Bub, give us some predictions for what's going to happen there and for the rest of the show next week. What's going to happen in the show? And what do you want to add?
So, predictions next week. The trial is going to take place now. I actually do remember the trial, so I won't give predictions as to specifically what will happen, but it should be very exciting.
Okay. My prediction is Oberyn has a huge role in the trial. There's going to be backstabbing both ways between Tywin and Oberyn, but somebody's going to have the bigger backstab, right? So it's going to be backstab, but I got a bigger backstab.
Who's got the bigger knife to put in the bag?
We're going to see... I think we're going to see Reek. We're finally going to see Reek, and his sister, remember, is out there somewhere on her way to rescue Reek, or Theon. We saw that in the very first episode. So that's got to be resolved soon. I'd love to see that. And then I want to see this looming battle in the east now with Daenerys against the Slavers and the Butcher. Probably won't see the battle, but we'll see the build-up to it.
I will say this about next week. I don't expect to see much besides the trial itself.
Okay.
Much like at the wedding, we didn't really see much besides the wedding.
Yeah. By the way, White Walker craziness to the north. What do you think is going to happen with the White Walkers? If you haven't read the books, and by the way, the books aren't even finished, so we don't even have a resolution. If you read the books, it's the White Walker story. So what do you think eventually is the end game with the White Walkers in this story? What do you think George R.R. Martin is going to do with the White Walkers? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you share this video with everybody. We want to grow this. We'll continue to do this throughout this season and hopefully for the rest of the Game of Thrones seasons as well. It's ThroneCast. This is episode 3.
Yep.
We'll be back same time, same place next week for episode 4. By the way, just before we sign off here,
all right,
you and I played Game of Thrones board game. We're doing it every Sunday kind of thing. I smoked him. He had a disastrous game as the Starks. He was the Starks. But it was very Starkish.
It was appropriate to the literature.
Greyjoys took over Winterfell.
Yeah.
he tried to go down towards King Landing and got thwarted, came back up. And then, of course, I was the Lannisters. Lannisters win, like always.
Next week will be a different story. All right, y'all. See you next week. Like and subscribe.
Peace. We out.
Lord Snow, you're bringing me back for trial. We had a good thing here. We were free men. You'll never be free. You'll never know what that's like.
You learn how to fight in a castle. Some old man teach you how to stand, how to parry, how to fight with honor. You know what's wrong with honor?